In this video, we are looking at Crapemyrtle, specifically the Barista Crapemyrtle series from Walter's Gardens. So, Crapemyrtle, if you are familiar with it, is typically what we think of as a southern shrub, but it is up here up north in Zone 6, West Michigan, a woody perennial for us. So that means it dies all the way back to the ground each year. So these plants behind me, this past year, we cut them all the way back to the ground because that is what the plants did. They died all the way back to the ground and we just had the roots. And then in one season, they flushed back into these big, beautiful plants. So because that is how they operate, because they're used to dying all the way back to the ground and flushing up, when they do that, you see a lot of earlier bloom on them. So our Crapemyrtle, you notice, tend to bloom a lot earlier than some of the more traditional varieties on the market. Even if you're growing them in the south, they do tend to be on the early side of blooming. We've noticed and we've been told that they have really good powdery mildew resistance. So if you're looking for a perennial or a shrub in the south that's going to really hold up nice and look great, and Crapemyrtles like these, which have that beautiful glossy foliage, you want that foliage to look nice. So excellent mildew resistance. The varieties within the collection, the Barista series has 6 varieties within it. The first one here is Cherry Mocha, which is by far our most popular. Cherry Mocha, named for that cherry red flower and then that kind of mocha type foliage that it has. So that's Cherry Mocha. The other red that we have in the series is Lava Java. So this one is earlier to bloom. You can see quite a bit more spent bloom on this one. We are getting into the last weeks of July here, and you can see that this plant has already been in bloom for quite a while. So if you're looking for a really nice summer blooming shrub or woody perennial, then this is going to be a great one for you. Lava Java with a much darker red flower than what Cherry Mocha has. Then we have Dark Roast. So this one has some of the darkest foliage in the series. It's not going to be any of the true near black foliage of what you see on some Crapemyrtles, but just an incredibly dark color. And then contrasting against that is a really nice medium pink flower. And then here we have Sweet Macchiato, which is going to be another one of the really dark leafed varieties and has a good, gorgeous pink flower. This is going to be a lighter color than what we have on Dark Roast. And here we have Peppermint Mocha, which is by far our first Crapemyrtle to bloom. This is one of the absolute earliest blooming Crapemyrtles that you can get on the market. It's also one of our most floriferous. You can just see this entire plant, top to bottom, completely covered. And even though it's been blooming for a few weeks now, it's still going strong. You can hardly tell from a distance that it's even got any spent flowers on it. So that is Peppermint Mocha. And last we have Like a Latte, which you can see is our solid white flowering variety. This one really clean, and then set off that bright white flower against dark foliage. And if you're growing these in a southern zone, as I mentioned, you will not see that amount of dieback. So this is also Cherry Mocha, where when we saw it in the bed over by the greenhouse, it was only about 3 feet tall, maybe 3.5. Here we're well up to 7 feet. It's got a much thicker, woodier stem. Really nice vertical columnar habit to this one. Microclimate comes from being sandwiched in between brick building and then a concrete pad underneath. And then here's Lava Java, which when it grows up becomes a little bit broader. You can see that nice shiny green foliage. Still early to bloom on this one, been blooming for quite a while. And again, we're getting up into that 7-foot range. So that's the difference of growing these plants in a southern zone versus a northern zone, and the difference of a woody perennial in those two environments.